Hello guys, it's me again, Jibus. Welcome to my channel. It's been about a month since my last video. I've been busy making this P-51 Mustang. This is the D version, the bubble canopy. The real plane has 4 blades propeller, but it's hard to find a 4 blades propeller in the market, so I use 3 blades instead. Actually, this is the second version of Mustang I ever built. The first one is smaller than this. The wingspan is about 1 meter. This is 1.1. It uses 28 motor. It's a good flyer, but it's hard to maneuver because of the limited power. So this is the second version using the bigger motor, more powerful motor. This is with 35 motor. With 50 ESC and 3S battery, 2200 mAh. The flying weight of this plane is about 1 kilogram or 1060 grams precisely. In this project, I try new 4 things that I have never done before. The first one is the spinner. It's DIY, homemade. It can be detached and reattached with just 3 screws like this, and also it's balanced. The second one is the bubble canopy. This is the second method that's successfully done. The first method is harder than this is easier. The first method is on F-35C. The third one is using new material for the covering. In the previous episode, I already tried using packing tape and also wax paper. And this one I use new material, which is laminating film. The laminating film thickness is about 30 micron. The end result is similar than the packing tape when painted, but I learned new things on the process. And the last one is the retractable landing gear. Here's the retract. It's not perfect, but at least it won't hang down when in the air. It will be folded out.
Okay, let's build this model. The plans are available on A4 and A0 size paper. You can download them along with the decal file on my website. You can find the link on this video's description on YouTube. Combine the segmented pages with sellotape and cut the individual parts with cutter knife. And then trace it onto foam board and cut the parts. I use 5mm depron or polyfoam. You can also use 6mm foam board. This is how I make custom wheels for main landing gear. I use 2 layers of 7mm plywood for the wheel's rim and 2 layers of 10mm EVA foam for the tire. I use two sizes of wire for landing gear struts. Smaller one about 2.5 mm for the lower section, and the upper section I use 3.5 mm wire. The wire are small bicycle and motorcycle wheel spoke wire. To combine the two wires, I solder them like this. And also I use copper wire to tie and solder it. Make stoppers with copper wire and solder it. Make a narrow cut on the upper side of the strut so the hinge shaft can be put there. It will make the weld stronger. Also use copper wire to tie the shaft before soldering it. Now I am making the ring for connecting the strut with the pushrod. Make the ring size to fit the pushrod size. Okay, now both landing gears are ready to be installed. By using a heat gun and a metal pipe, bend the wing part like this. Mark the spar position according to the plans. Attach airfoil former and then foam spar. We need to attach the retractable landing gear while the wing still being built. These are the ribs from 3 mm plywood for mounting the retractable landing gear. Assemble the landing gear strut like this. Use CA glue to glue the retract set to the mounting. Make sure the landing gear can be deployed and retract freely without obstruction. Add stopper with 7 mm plywood like this. This will prevent the landing gear to collapse to the outside. Attach the pushrod. I recommend you to use stiff and rigid pushrod, bigger is better. Secure the pushrod and landing gear on retracted position while we finish the wing construction. Sand the leading edge with the angle matching the airfoil former like this. Also sand the trailing edge like this. Mark the plywood spar position just behind the foam spar like this. I am making a guide for the plywood spar or wing joiner. Begin closing the wing, start from the leading edge like this. And then close the wing like this. It's important to press the trailing edge against the table like this. Here I heat up all the surfaces, so when it cools down, the shape of the wing will be freeze and stay curved. Sand all edges into rounded shape. Sand the trailing edge until thinner than the other edges. Cut the aileron using a guide from the plans. And then prepare the aileron like this. Add a piece of foam on the aileron gap so the horn can have something to grip on. You may encounter something like this. Just add glue again to the gap and band it with masking tape. Close the gap from aileron cutting with foam like this. Insert the plywood spar or wing joiner to join both two half wings. Use the trailing edge as a reference when joining the wing. Just ignore the leading edge as long as the trailing edge is matched or meet. Don't worry about the other. Make a hole according to the plans to install the servo. I want to add stoppers on the middle, so I need to trim the push rods. This is the servo platform. I use standard servo to drive the retract landing gear. Here I want to share with you the key feature of this retract mechanism. This is the servo arm position when landing gear is deployed. With this position, the servo arm is unable to rotate when the push rod pull it or push it. So it is the key element of this mechanism. It is a lock mechanism and it won't damage the servo because of that servo arm position. And this is when the landing gear is retracted. The standard servo is strong enough to hold both lightweight landing gears in up position. Install the servo upside down like this. Adjust the stoppers and test the retract mechanism. It's not perfect, but at least this Mustang will not have the landing gear hanging down when flying. I'll improve it on the future projects. Follow these steps to assemble the fuselage. This is how I make battery compartment. Actually, I installed this compartment when the plane is already finished. But it's a good idea to install it when you came to this step, because it is a lot easier. Attach the battery compartment here. You have to cut one of the former to make way for it. We need to sand the upper edge like this because it will be attached a bit angled. Before we install the motor, we need to make a spinner first because we need the motor to do it. Stack 7 layers of 10 mm foam like this. Use foam glue to glue the foam. Screw the motor to a plywood board. And use foam glue and follow these steps to make a spinner. The nose was designed purposely a bit crooked to the right and downward, so you can have a smooth transition from the nose to the spinner, while still have a right and down thrust angle for the motor. Thrust angle is important to counter the motor torque and the wing lift, so the plane will fly straight instead of keep turning to the left and up tendency. I use 7mm plywood for firewall or motor mounting. When attached, the firewall will be a bit tilted to the right and down, each about 2 degrees. Here I used a 35 motor. It is Dongxingwei D3536 1200 kV with 50 amp ESC. Insert the ESC to the fuselage before screwing the motor. Use the spinner to aim the correct motor position. Use hot glue as a temporary glue. And finally screw the motor. Make a center line on top of the horizontal stabilizer to guide it when installing to the fuselage. Sand the leading edge and the side edges into rounded shape. For vertical stabilizers, only sand the leading edge and the top edge. Sand all edges on the rudder. And for the elevator, sand all edges into rounded shape too. This is the first time I use laminating film. I got this from my friend. He said it is 30 micron film. It's very thin and look very glossy on the outside and matte on the inside. This is the basic technique that I use when covering with any material. Apply on the bottom side first with fit size, and then cover the top side and fold the excess cover down to meet the bottom cover. The glue is on the inside, which activated when heated by hot iron. Before covering the fuselage, you need to add this wing fairing first. Glue this part to the fuselage only, not to the wing. After the fuselage and engine cowl already covered, we can put it back together again. Here I make the engine cowl, can be detached and attached by using 2 screws on each sides. You can use long servo screw, screw it until it reaches the firewall plywood inside. Cut a portion of trailing edge on the middle so the wing will be easier to install. Add 2 pieces of 7mm plywood on the fuselage for saving the screw from the wing. And add 4 screws to hold the wing to the fuselage. I use gypsum screw. Make screw holes larger with solder. Add mica plastic to protect the foam from wear. I use 2.5mm wire for tail wheel strut and 35mm foam wheel for the wheel. Add stopper for wheel with sewing thread and CA glue. Assemble the platform with 3mm and 7mm plywood like this. Make a hole on the center so the strut can go through. Sand the upper strut as we will solder it with swing arm. Add stopper on the lower side. Insert the strut to the platform and secure it with stopper on the upper end. This is a swing arm from wire. And then tie the swing arm with copper wire to the strut before solder it. Install the tail wheel on the tail like this. Cover all stabilizer and control surfaces before attaching to the fuselage. Here I am making hinge from mica plastic and masking tape like this. I use foam safe glue to glue the hinges to control surfaces. I am making a swing arm on the rudder that will be connected to the tail wheel. Make an opening on the back for screwing the wing. I use masking tape for aileron hinges. Cut servo holes and insert the servo. You have to extend your servo cables like this. I use 9-gram metal servo for ailerons. Make holes for elevator push rods according to the plans. I use small plastic straw to guide the push rod. This servo platform is made out of 3mm plywood and 5mm foam stacked together. Combine the two elevator push rods with a wire, so it will shape a wire push rod like this. Install the elevator servo first. I recommend to use all metal gear servo. And then install the rudder servo. Attach control horns on all control surfaces. Here I am too lazy to make control horn, so I use servo arms. Finish it with installing push rods and stoppers. You need to sand all surfaces with medium sandpaper before applying paint. I use depron spray paint to color this model and use silver for base color. Army green for top of the wing and some areas on the fuselage. This one I use white vinyl stickers and paint it green too. This is dark yellow. You cannot use masking tape here, so I use wet paper for masking. For some, I use stickers instead of paint for the color scheme base. And I use printed vinyl stickers for the decals. Decal file also shared along with the model plans. I am making a mold for the canopy. It is 17 layer of 5mm foam stacked together. I use foam glue to glue the foam board. Fit to shape the canopy like this. Sand it with rough sand cloth and smooth it with medium 240 and 1000 grit sandpaper. This is what the mold looks like with thin layer of wood putty. Place the mold high enough so you will have space to pull and stretch it down. I use 0.5mm mica plastic and use 2 pieces of plywood for hand grip. I set medium opening on the portable gas stove to heat the plastic. When plastic already soft enough, put it on top of the mold and pull it down. Hold it down about 30 seconds until it cools down and the plastic will be hard again. I use EVA foam to help attaching windshield to the cockpit. Use a guide from plans to cut the canopy. Extend the front edge about 3 mm like this, so it can be inserted into the windshield. Make a lid for the cockpit hole manually like this. It will be used as a canopy base. Cover and paint it black. Add to the pilot and other details like this. That's a black 10 mm EVA foam. Glue the canopy to the canopy base with UHU glue. My original plan was to use 3D papercraft pilot like on the Stearman, but I'm running out of time, so I use 2D pilot like this. You can use Stearman pilot papercraft template with 80% size for this Mustang. Try to put the canopy in place to adjust the canopy position before the glue is set. The Mustang canopy is not fully rounded. It's a bit flat on top of it, so I use a wire to shape it. Use a guide to make a frame on the canopy like this. And then paint it army green. And I use painted Oracle vinyl stickers to make frame details on the canopy. Add 7 mm plywood inside the back of the cockpit to receive screw. Use long servo screw to secure the canopy like this. Do you remember on the fuselage building, I said that I actually installed the battery compartment when the plane is already finished? Here it is. I am making the last detail, the 650 cal Browning's guns. The CG is 5 cm from this spot for casual fly. For aggressive flying, I prefer 4 cm. Make it a bit nose heavy. This is how I install the spinner. You can use 3 screws or just glue it in place.
lagi. Tapi enak. Ini stabil dulu. Masih bisa pakai elevator mah.
Redep banget gue bangsat. Coba di sini. Kurang mau manuver dulu ya. Oh.
Wih, mantap.
Sensitif ininya.
Iya, tangan lu naik turunnya itu kejep.
Waduh, 30 nih. Nah, gue landingnya gimana nih?
Ya lu enaknya dari kiri ke kanan. Enaknya mana? Dari kanan om, mendingan om. Ini masih rumput. Kalau dari kiri tanah mulu.
Dari kanan mana?
Dari situ. Apa?
Canopy-nya mau lepas.
Oh.
Okay guys, that's how this Mustang flies. I think it was a good maiden flight with perfect takeoff and also a good landing. I think the landing is alright, even with the collapsing of the retractable landing gear in the end when the plane stopped. But when it touched down, it functioned perfectly, rolling on the ground and until it stopped. I think I will continue using this retractable mechanism and improve it for future projects. And now the control. The control is quite precise, also responsive because I made the aileron a bit bigger than the scale one, and the control also predictable. This Mustang is already finished. You can make this Mustang your own with yourself. I have the plans and decals for free for you to download on my website. The link is on the descriptions. The next project, I will continue our Douglas DC-3. It will be part 4. I hope it will be the last episode of the DC-3. Okay, thanks for watching. If you like this video, consider to like, share and subscribe, and don't forget to click the bell icon so you can be notified if I make a new model like this. Thanks again, see you in the next episode.